What's going on, everybody? It's Jay here from Nerd Takes, and today I wanted to give you my take on The Acolyte. So, Disney's latest Star Wars series, The Acolyte, just wrapped up its season this week, and to say that the show's been met with two very different opinions on its quality and overall contribution to the Star Wars universe would be a massive understatement. Essentially, what it's boiled down to is that if you're somebody who's enjoyed Disney Star Wars, then you'll probably have liked this show. And if you're somebody who hasn't been a fan of Disney Star Wars, then you're very likely to not have enjoyed this one. Now, I personally haven't enjoyed Disney Star Wars as a whole. I can't really think of anything that I've truly thought was good from this era of Star Wars. Honestly, I struggle to think of anything that's even decent. From bad writing to lore breaking stories, there's just been very little for me to take from this and say, that was a good contribution to the Star Wars universe. I think maybe I could say that one of the few things I have liked was Rogue One, but even that, I watched it once and never really went back to it again. Which brings me to Disney's latest entry into the Star Wars universe, The Acolyte. And I have to say, even beyond being a bad Star Wars show, this was one of the most poorly written and overall poorly created shows that I've ever watched. Fundamentally, this show is awful. The writing is so flawed that it's hard to imagine how the scripts even got past the initial rough draft stages. There's so many illogical happenings with no connective material that watching things play out just becomes frustrating as the story goes on. You sit there thinking of all the ways that the story just doesn't make any sense. Without getting too into spoilers, one of the main concepts of the show is exploring the line between good and evil. And it's so poorly done that by the end of the series, you're still left trying to understand how exactly they're justifying the conclusion that they've drawn in exploring that line based off the actual events of the story and the actions of the characters in it. It really just comes off as a bizarre perspective, if I'm being honest. And then on top of that, the story itself is just poorly written, nonsensical, predictable, and frankly breaks a ton of Star Wars lore. Then, of course, we have the dialogue, which is some of the most bland and at times flat out bad dialogue that I've seen in a show or a movie for that matter in some time. I mean, there's really not much else to say about it other than that. It reflects the poorly written story and attempts to help push it along, but majority of it doesn't make sense and it's ultimately just a byproduct of the story itself. The acting, for the most part, ranges from bad to hollow, minus a solid performance from actor Lee Jung Jae, who was far and away the best performance of the cast. Unfortunately, even he could only do so much with what he was given in terms of script and story, but besides him, it's a show full of bad acting and hollow delivery of lines. Lead actress Amanda Stenberg delivered an emotionless performance, in my opinion. There was no real range of emotion in her acting, whether it be through the delivery of dialogue or even just facial expressions to try to show what her character was going through at any point in the series. However, she wasn't the only one who had this type of performance. Most everyone else on the show did the same. At times, scenes felt more like a read through of the script than an actual attempt at filming the scenes. Visually, I didn't think the show was awful, but I also didn't feel like it lived up to that reported budget. It didn't feel like sets looked bad so much as just a bit bland in terms of Star Wars. But to be honest, that was probably the least of my issues. There were even a few scenes that I thought looked pretty good. Then we had the other aspect of the visual side of things, which was the action and fight sequences. When they were in episodes, it really wasn't great choreography overall. There are some really silly things that happen in these fights that stood out. But in fairness, there were a few cool moments as well. I have to be honest and give credit where it's due there. A few times I thought to myself, okay, that was actually kind of a cool scene. So fair enough there, but those moments were quickly met with others that were very silly and not well thought out. And then, of course, this brings us to probably my biggest issue with the show beyond its poor fundamental quality, which was the areas where they created issues with Star Wars lore. In this video, I'm not going to get into spoilers, so unfortunately, I can't get too specific here. I am considering doing a spoiler discussion about the lore issues themselves in another video, so there's a chance I do that just so that I can further explain my issues with what the show does to the overall Star Wars universe. But in the least spoiler way that I can put it, there are quite a few things in this show that really go against some important parts of the established Star Wars lore, in my opinion. That one, I don't think they really needed to do in order to tell a story. And two, in general, it just really damages the lore of the prequels as well as Star Wars as a whole. Overall, I just really did not like this show, and I cannot personally recommend it as one to watch. Now, that's just my opinion of it. If you're somebody who enjoyed it, then that's great. You don't have to let my opinion of the show affect how you view it. At the end of the day, this is all subjective, so to each their own. If you'd like to discuss some counterpoints about why you did enjoy the show, then by all means, feel free in the comments. At the end of the day, the best part about these IPs that we love is having discussions about them, whether it's in agreement or disagreement, but doing so respectfully is the key. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll be back again with another review soon.